On October 31st, 1938, America was not talking about Halloween or trick-or-treating. They were talking about a man named Orson Welles. It turns out the night before, Mr. Orson Welles got on the radio, and he convinced the American public that aliens were invading New Jersey. This was called the War of the Worlds radio broadcast. It turns out it was fiction, no need to worry, but more than anything, it shot him to fame, and it demonstrated how the media can shift how the people sense their reality. I knew I wanted to talk about how the media influences how we see ourselves, how we see other people. And after consulting Dr. Sova, we both agreed that media cultivation theory was the way to go. So after a little bit of research and a fair share of media consumption myself, I've come here to share my findings with y'all today. So today we'll be talking about what is cultivation theory, how does it apply to society, and how does it apply to politics. So let's start with what is cultivation theory. The term was coined by George Gerbner in 1969. It's been about 60 years or so, right? So the term as defined by Dr. Cynthia Vinnie of ThoughtCo, an expert on psychology, was repeated exposure to media over time can shift a person's sense of reality. She believes there are two main components to media cultivation theory: mainstreaming and resonance. Mainstreaming is the idea of a shared view among the people. So let's say a trending topic on Twitter, we all throw our support behind something, we all throw our hate against something. That's mainstreaming, something that's really popular. Resonance is a message that sticks with the viewer because of perceived relevance. So let's say I read something online, and I'm like, dang, that speaks to me as a person. That's resonance. So what's with the Brussels sprouts? The way that I saw it, Brussels sprouts are pretty much universally hated. And I feel like it's a pretty mainstream point of view that they're utterly disgusting and tasteless. Sorry to all of my Brussels sprouts lovers out there. As for resonance, I believe it speaks to all of us as people, because a lot of us had to down some vegetables that we didn't really like as kids. So how can Gerbner's theory be improved? Well, you probably realize it, but if the theory was made in the 1960s, then was there social media during that time? Heck no. So that's what these two graphics are here to demonstrate a little bit of. We've got two graphics, one from the United States, one from the UK. From the United States, based on a study done by Pew Research Center, they surveyed American adults, and they found that about 68 to 70% of American adults consume most of their, or get a portion of their news from social media. As for the graphic on the right, based on a study done by Oxford University and Reuters, they found that younger populations from around 2013 to 2018 were more likely to get their news from online sources, from streaming services. As for the older population, print and TV. So we've talked about what cultivation theory is. Let's talk about how it affects the people. Beginning with LGBTQ+ stereotyping. Based on a study done by Sarah Baker Nestle, PhD, in 2010, she found that from 2005 to 2006, 43% of gay TV characters were depicted in sexual situations. So don't get me wrong, media portrayal for LGBTQIA persons has improved significantly since then. But if anything, this statistic demonstrates how the media can feed into a narrative, how it can feed into harmful stereotypes, into harmful beliefs. So what if I'm the victim? We need to talk about mean world syndrome. It's a phenomenon in which people perceive their world as a more dangerous and violent place, especially heavy viewers of TV. And Gerbner concurs with this definition. By the way, the definition was by Dr. Cynthia Vinnie. So he found that light viewers of TV perceive their odds of being a victim of crime as about 1 in 100, 1% likelihood. For heavy viewers of TV, the odds shot up to 1 out of every 10. In other words, they believe they were 10 times more likely to be a victim of crime. So I'm gonna kind of skim over this slide because I'm running out of time as we speak, but we know about Insta, we know about how it distorts the way that people perceive their bodies and their self-image, and we know that it's among the top 5 most used social medias around the globe with over 2 billion plus users according to a graphic by Statista in January of 2024. Based on a study done by Stein et al. In 2021, they found that of the around 200 individuals that they surveyed, around 53% of them were unhappy with their bodies. And I think if anything, this just demonstrates how the media can shift how we see ourselves, how we perceive our environment, and how we perceive our body image. So remind me, what unites the country in peace, love, and harmony? If you said politics, you'd be wrong. But that's what we're talking about next. So, by show of hands, who's heard of what an echo chamber is? Does anybody know? Okay, not too bad, not too bad. So, as defined by psych professor Phil Reed, it's an environment in which an individual is only exposed to their own beliefs or ideology, thereby reinforcing their perspective. So let's say that I identify with the left wing or the right wing, and I only consume media particular and relevant to the party that I identify with. I'm thereby reinforcing my perspective, my beliefs, but I'm not exposing myself to the other side of that argument. I'm not exposing myself to different perspectives, different arguments. And that's what an echo chamber is. So based on a study done by Yale and UC Berkeley researchers in 2019, they found, by the way, this was cited by Annie Aguiar, a former journalist at Poynter. The experiment, they took a group of Fox News viewers. They told them, we're gonna pay you a little bit of the green, a little bit of cash, switch over to CNN for a month, see how it goes. What they found was that those Fox News viewers were less likely to believe in certain conspiracies. They were less likely to believe that Democrats would commit election fraud. They were less likely to believe that Biden's election would result in more police officer deaths. And if anything, I think this demonstrates that exposure to something outside of that echo chamber is more likely to shift strong beliefs, regardless of how physically entrenched in them an individual might be. So, why do the left and right trust Fox News and CNN so much? I think a huge part of it is, I think I just gave the answer away, they trust them like crazy. That's what makes them so popular. So Fox News and CNN topped the chart of the left and right's most trusted sources of political and election news coverage. This was based on a study by Pew Research Center in 2019. In the same study, they found that about 2/3 of both parties kept CNN and Fox News as their top news sources. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's not surprising. And you're absolutely right. I didn't keep it in there for the shock factor. More importantly, I kept it in there so that to demonstrate that individuals might throw their support behind a certain organization, an institution that they believe speaks to their core beliefs and interests. And that might also be why moderates are less likely to be in the political running, because they don't speak to the extremes of both sides of the political spectrum. So let's review.